Welcome back to the Field Service Leaders Podcast, where we explore the intersection of innovation, sustainability, and the future of the industry. I'm your host, Alistair Clifford Jones, the CEO of Leadent. And today we're diving into one of the most pressing and promising areas of global transformation: how digital tools and operational excellence accelerate the green energy transition, particularly looking at areas around training and people. Joining us is Sandy Laird, an accomplished leader with decades of experience driving large-scale change in the energy sector. As a former executive, vice president, and current advisor and board member across various clean energy initiatives, Sandy has been the forefront of integrating digital innovation with on-the-ground execution. And I quite like the way she talks about some of the challenges she's had in the past. From leveraging data to streamlining asset performance to scaling renewables in a rapidly evolving market. She brings a rare combination of strategic vision and hands-on experience. In today's episode, we'll unpack real-world challenges and opportunities. And actually, one of the things is sort of the cross-section between how insurance companies may actually end up damaging operational efficiency. Whether you're in energy, tech, or leadership, the conversation will give you a valuable takeaway on where the future's headed and how to be part of it. So let's get started. Hi, well, Sandy, just to kick off, can you give me a quick overview of your career and how you've ended up in service leadership?
Sure. So I started my career in automotive and the actually plastics molded injection. I was in the engineering department at that time, and we kind of oversaw as far as new products coming in, how it went through manufacturing, and being able to set that up. From there, I became interested in quality. And back then, there was QS 9000. So I learned how to be a lead assessor and audited our sister companies. And then from there, I moved on to another automotive company that did electrical controls for the assembly lines. And I was responsible for basically the operating system for the manufacturing, got into a little bit of sales, which was my first time. And then from there, moved on to telecom. At the telecom industry, I had a great opportunity to be able to be part of the Quest Forum. So the Quest Forum is like a governing body that creates standards for the telecom industry. So we created those, we published those, and was really part of a good team. And then from there, I went on to had an opportunity that about 3 blocks from my house, the largest solar
Perfect.
site was being built. And I applied for the job and ended up becoming a quality inspector on that project. So I was excited because it was different than office work. It was being out in the field, being out in the environment, and three blocks from my house. I mean, that was pretty good. So I started there and worked there for 11 and a half years and moved up in the company as regional manager and then to global manager. And then from there, they dissolved the company, that portion of the company, where I moved on to RRC Companies, where I am now. And what I liked about RRC is they do everything from the beginning of a project to the end. So they do like survey, geotech, electrical engineering, SCADA. We have our own SCADA, our BEST group. And then it goes into my department, to field services, where we try to support right from the beginning of the project to the end through contracts, field crew out in the field. We do supplier quality, and then we finish it up with training, testing and training.
Wow.
So yeah, a nice little roundabout how I finally got here.
It's interesting. So on the journey that you've had, have there been any sort of challenges that have shaped the journey, do you think, that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, when I first started, it was back in, I'll just say it's back in the 90s when I first started, and there wasn't a whole lot of women in the industry. So I
Mm.
found myself, and sometimes still now, where I'm the only female there. And with that, I had to find my voice and not be maybe the loudest at a table, or maybe use the same vocabulary, we'll say, at that table. But I wanted to be true to myself and be me. But at the same time, I had to learn to get respect, and I had to be very factual so that I gained that respect. So it took a little learning through that to be able to figure out where I fit in, and able to get my point of view across.
Wow, it's always tough actually in that industry, isn't it?
Yes, it still is.
So, have there been any mentors in your journey that you thought have been particularly good, or anything that you've learned through other
Uh,
people?
Best mentor. was when I first started into the plastic automotive. And I had a manager because it was a company, they weren't doing very well. And it was several years till we could even get an increase. So I think I went 5 years and I was so excited and I received 25 cents. 5 years I waited for this. But one thing that always stuck with me is he said, you never get upset and you never disrespect your fellow employee because you never know who you'll be reporting to or who might be your customer or client in your next job. So
Yeah.
you always leave and you always treat everybody with respect. You might be upset with that coworker or that boss or whatever. Kind of keep that to yourself and always be professional. So that's always stuck in my mind that you never know who you're going to run into. And it's funny because now you run into those people and that whole scenario is true.
It's really true. I mean, I was with Price Waterhouse, and then Price Waterhouse, someone left us, and went to the partners, said, "We'll never work for you again. You're just an awful company, etc." 2 weeks later, they announced the merger with Coopers, and that's where he'd gone to. Um, but moving forward, I mean, now where you are in terms of really kind of field service, are there any emerging technologies that you're excited about at the moment?
Yeah, right now, you probably heard a little bit maybe in news, but data centers right now are becoming very popular, we'll say,
Yep.
battery energy storage. I'm very fortunate myself here because at RRC we have an engineering group that specializes in data centers and battery energy storage. For me, that's really beneficial because I can learn that new technology and learn the design behind it and how it works, how the system works. But that's really the big focus right now. You might see too a lot of governmental, where they have set goals and guidelines where they want to have so much energy in that particular area of storage. So you're starting to see that a little bit more too.
So is there anything unique, do you think, about the green energy industry at the moment?
Well, when I first came from automotive and telecom, the biggest difference is because you're outside, you're dealing with a lot of environmental issues. So it's things that you hadn't thought of. So areas where it might be too hot, or areas where you get snow or snow load or heavy rain. So all those different climatic conditions you have to incorporate and put into your design that you wouldn't think these things would affect. You think, looking, especially now, you look at history and you think, this was the history 25 years, floodplains were here. But with our environment changing so much, our weather patterns changing, it really makes a big impact now as far as how it affects those projects.
Any specific challenges apart from those environmental factors?
Well, I was going to say that just to add on to that for those challenges for weather, having to deal with your equipment in those types of weather, that's the biggest challenge because you get all this equipment in and there's timelines. And if it sits there, it really can degrade equipment if it's not protected well. You'll have issues down the line if it's not protected well. The type of equipment, if it's been sitting out too long, can affect it. So there's so many things with the environment that we don't think of that really makes an impact.
So, in terms of the green energy industry, are there any challenges that you think are unique?
Yes, I think one of the challenges, I spoke earlier about the weather conditions, that poses a huge challenge during construction, making sure critical equipment and products are protected prior to installation. If you get flooding happening, it can greatly affect your cable connections, etc. That obviously water and electricity don't mix well. So that's a big hindrance there. The other challenge right now that's happening in the industry is resources. So having trained resources, there's so many projects that are happening and going on right now, and the amount of resources and trained resources don't meet the demand. So it's getting people interested, getting people trained, and getting them trained quickly enough to be able to meet the expectations of these projects coming up.
Okay. So, talking of projects, have you ever had a project that's not gone quite as well as you were expecting?
Yes. Have we not all?
I didn't want to use the word failure. I just thought that was.
So one of the companies I was with, the company decided to want to cut costs. So they they looked at the field resources and they decided to eliminate the quality field resources during the construction. And they put that basically the accountability back on the subcontractor contractor that was doing the work and for the construction team to monitor it. And the quality team had to just do periodic inspections. So that was the scenario to reduce costs. What happened is there was really no accountability. The subcontractor contractor was building things not per spec or not per plan. There was a lot of failures that happened. So during a construction project, you'll end up with is called a punch list. And a punch list is like basically what it is a list that you put all the items during construction that need to be done and completed before you can walk off the project. That punch
Okay.
list was the longest I have ever seen. It took over a year to get those items, some of those items complete. And then even after the year, because of how equipment was treated or how it was installed, there was early failures. So even a year after, so you're now going into 2.5 years, where that project still had so many issues that had to be remediated and fixed, and it wasn't built as per spec.
So, talking about customer service, have you seen much change in the requirements, customers,
From customers,
and
actually,
expectations, that sort of thing?
yeah, what's odd right now is I've actually seen a lesson of customer expectation. Now, you'd think that's a little odd, but what's happened is you have all these projects coming in, and you have, again, all these new vendors and suppliers coming in. So, suppliers that want to make it quick in the industry and be able to get a lot of customers, they'll say we'll warranty it. So if it's installed wrong, don't worry, we'll warranty it. At the same time, you have the insurance companies coming in, and they also are insuring a lot of these project sites. So what happens during construction is there's really no accountability to ensure that the project is built correctly onto that contractor. So he thinks, no problem. I want to hurry and get this date done. We'll just build it and get it done. And the supplier might come in and fix the mistakes. That doesn't always work out the best because it's the workmanship that's also done in there that causes those failures, and it doesn't put the accountability back where it needs to be. Accountability for workmanship needs to be with the installer. The accountability of the equipment needs to be with the manufacturer. And then that all affects, obviously, with our lenders and our bankability and our insurance claims. It all affects that down the road. So, you know, really people need to put those accountability where it needs to be. So what I've tried to do at RRC is one of the offerings I try to provide is kind of enhancing contracts for clients, for the owners that are taking over these large energy sites, so that it's easy and easier for them to put accountability if it's in the contract to say, okay, no, let's stop here, let's build it correct so that we won't have a reliability issue. So yeah, it's just a little odd of what's happening. And then of course you have the odd customer or client that quality is first, and they want to have good expectations and high expectations. So you have that happening, and then with all the jobs happening, like I was saying earlier, you have all these new contractors trying to get work. They don't have processes or procedures in place, so they're just trying to work to get things done. So there's a lot happening, and there's a lot of different pieces that are happening. You have new vendors, you have new contractors. So if you don't have a good contract and you don't have a good field crew that can monitor that contract as well as monitor the construction being done, you're going to have failure.
That's interesting, actually, because it's almost insurance is the reason why quality's gone down. Almost, isn't it? I think,
Yeah.
if I heard you right. So, okay, with AI, and everyone's talking about AI everywhere, do you have any thoughts on AI and how that affects field service?
So AI is great because it helps you to solve issues, let's say, quickly and immediately. So for instance, looking at SCADA, or if you're looking at even just I've seen operation maintenance use just an automated tablet sort of thing that will help them troubleshoot and help them fix the issue. And that's great because it gets you back online, gets that energy back online quickly. However, the one piece that I hope that we don't miss as individuals is bringing in the why did that happen? People and operators got to still understand why the failure happened, where to troubleshoot, and how to troubleshoot it on their own, because they will lack. Otherwise, they're going to lack that knowledge of the energy site, and it's not good if you're, again, it kind of goes back to training. If your personnel don't understand why they're doing something, they're just kind of following a checklist or a basic command to do
Hmm.
something without understanding why they're doing it.
It's interesting. You talk about training and stuff, which I think is important. How do you take care of your employees?
Well, the first thing I always try to make sure is training. So if I happen to know something and I'm really good at it, I'm not going to keep it to myself. The best way, especially as a manager, is to train all your groups so that no one's hoarding that information. Everybody in that group should be able to have that information and be able to grow with it. You want everybody to be, the best they can be on your team because that only makes you a better manager. So you really
Hmm.
want everybody to learn from each other and not be afraid to call up their coworker and say, "Hey, do you happen to know this? I don't." I like it that they do call and ask me, "Hey, I'm not sure on this. What do you think?" So that we are working as a team. I think the other thing too is I do try my best to make sure I'm always available. If they have a question or a concern, but at the same time, I don't want to be that manager that can't be approached. You know, I
Hmm.
I will get my boots on, go out in the field, be dirty, and at the same time, I want to know them. At one time, I had 27 projects going on at once, and
Wow.
if I picked up the phone and called that particular inspector, whoever was out there, I could tell by their voice if I needed to be there, if I needed to support
Okay.
them. And it's getting to know your workers as well, not just at a work level, because there's so many. I mean, we're all human. Sometimes you bring to work family problems, family issues, and all of that affects all of us. So at the same time, I try to be very, I'm here, not just here as a manager, but I'm also here as a colleague and a friend, that if you ever need any type of support, that I will be here. And I think that makes a big difference on getting the respect from employees that
Hmm.
you're willing to do that.
So, do you measure success in field service? And are there any key metrics that you use?
But yeah,
Apart from the tone of someone's voice, which I think is actually quite an important one.
yeah, it actually is. But yeah, some of the metrics I like to look at is issues found. So if they're out in the field and they are looking at things and they are inspecting or doing something, I like to see as far as what they're finding. Because one thing that tells me is that my learning or the teaching that we're doing or the training that we're doing is actually effective and they are finding items. The other metric I like to look at is the failures and the corrective actions. Because if you're looking at multiple projects and these are large scale projects, you obviously want to reduce those issues and put preventive measures in place, either be with the manufacturer, and the product. There could be failures or it could be with the contractor, wherever the issue is. You want to put something in place and not see it repeated. So you really want to make sure that you're measuring that and that you're seeing that that's gone away so that you don't incur those costs.
There's so much data, I think, that people are collecting at the moment. Do you have a strategy in terms of converting that data into insights?
Yeah, I say if you're going to collect data, make sure you got an ROI on it because you don't want to just collect data to collect data. You want to have some
Hmm.
sort of return of investment on it. So, and it can be financial investment, but it could also be a personnel investment that you're seeing, like I was mentioning, the training. So that's knowing that you're enhancing your group, making them stronger, making them more educated as far as knowing what products are out there. So you really want to put metrics in place that you are going to get something for. And especially in the field service area and you're dealing with owners or you're dealing with executives, what's the first thing they look at is the ROI. How much did it cost me? Where's the bottom line on this? So that's why it's really important that the metrics that you do put in place are measurable and that you can actually see a return of that investment of those metrics.
So, looking to the future now, Sandy, what do you think the field service industry will look like within your sector, within the green industry, green energy sector?
I think there's going to be more push for storage and data centers, and you're going to see that quickly in the next 5 years with those governmental platforms calling those out. You're going to see a lot of that happening. I think the other thing is, I kind of mentioned earlier, is training. So, really making sure that we have the resources, the personnel to be able to carry through and actually execute and get the quota that the countries need for their data centers and for their energy storage. And that's going to be a hard thing, but I think you're going to start seeing that movement because it just has to happen, and we have to be prepared for it as an industry.
And for you personally, next 24 months or whatever, what goals do you have? either personally or within your business?
On the business side, my goals for my group right now is I really want to focus on lenders and or insurance companies. So I'm very passionate when I come to looking at a project and seeing it built. I really want to make sure that it's built well and that it's very reliable. So sometimes on insurance companies or lenders, they might only look at certain things. So they'll look at maybe at a drawing, or they'll look at, what type of equipment's on the site. And then that's basically how they're doing their assessment. As I was talking through this, some of the questions you were asking me, you'll notice a lot of times I talk about training and
Hmm.
workmanship. Well, workmanship is one of the top failures of a lot of these project sites. And it's, you might fasten point A to point B how it's supposed to be fastened, but how it gets to point A and point B could be where the issue fell and where the error or where something failed. So the workmanship that's done through these construction, through the project, really affects that insurance rate and affects as far as the lenders knowing if they've hit milestone dates, is there going to be a concern? So I'm really trying within these next couple of years in our department to push in that direction, to be able to push and say, this is where you're kind of missing the apple. We can support you with that. So that's my big goal there.
Anything will stop you reaching that goal, do you think? Any bottlenecks?
It's just getting getting those
Yeah.
lenders and insurance companies to realize there's more to an energy site than the equipment and drawings. So really getting out there and hearing my voice. Really, I myself have done. I'm a little over 11 gigawatts now of energy that I've been responsible for. So I've seen a lot of failures, seen a lot of issues, and it's just getting them to understand that, okay, here's a whole area that they're not looking at. So I think that's going to be my tricky point.
Okay, finally, I mean that's been really interesting. But has there been anything really unexpected that you've encountered, unusual in your career?
Yes, I've had a couple, but I'm gonna pick up one. When I very first started, and I told you there was the project site not far from me. The area where it was built was a lot of clay and rain, and with clay, that water stays in the clay. So being in the field for field service, you're walking up and down these muddy fields, and my rubber boots, I became stuck and I started to sink, and I sank all the way up to my knees and I couldn't get out. So I had a walkie talkie and I said, come and get me. Well, then they stood for an hour at the end trying to figure out how to get me, because if they drove a truck through, it was going to sink. So they yelled down to me and said, hey, we're going to drive by in a buggy. When we drive by, jump out of your boots and jump into the buggy. And that's how we're going to rescue you. So that's what I did. Between that and I think my other was Australia, everything there was going to kill me, either it be a spider or a snake, or I
Yeah,
was so paranoid, paranoid to go out because everything was going to kill me within so many hours. I was just so scared. But those are the biggest challenges, is dealing with either the rodents, the snakes, or the weather.
excellent. But if I gave you, final question, really, if I could give you a magic wand and you could instantly solve one challenge in field service, what would it be?
First off, I'd love that magic wand, but if it would be something I'd have to solve in field services, I would say train. I was saying to you, I get very passionate when I go to a site, and a couple last year, the end of last year, and the year before, I'd go to a project site and been told there's been young individuals who lost their lives, and it was due to that they weren't trained. They didn't understand what they were working with. And you think these young people coming to work, I mean, they just want to do a good job, and they are willing to work because they're just so excited to get a paycheck, and they'll do whatever they're asked to do. But it's because companies haven't taken time to train effectively. So if I had that magic wand, I would train everybody out there, because I just hate hearing or getting a call from somebody saying something blew up, or and luckily nobody was hurt, but just training people to understand what they're working with and
Yeah,
how these things can affect them. That would be my wish.
interesting. Thank you. That was really good.